Who invited this maid here? The billionaire didn't whisper it. He hurled the words across the hall like a command. He stepped closer, smirking as if her existence offended him, then flicked his wrist and splashed red wine down her dress. Laughter rippled through the crowd, sharp and satisfied. But the arrogance that thrilled him would destroy him, because the simple black woman he mocked held the final approval for the billion-dollar fund his empire needed to survive. And humiliation was the one mistake he could never afford. Minutes later, phones buzzed, investors froze, and his empire collapsed in real time. All because he mistook dignity for weakness. Tell me, if you were the heroine in that moment, what would you have done? If this story moved you, please consider liking, commenting, and supporting the channel. Anya Sterling felt the weight of every stare long before she understood who they were coming from. The moment she stepped into the hall, a hush traveled through the air, soft but unmistakable. It wasn't admiration, it wasn't a surprise, it was the kind of silence that measured a person, stripped them bare, and judged what was left. Her gray dress clung to her frame with quiet precision. No glitter, no jewels, nothing that asked for attention. Yet she became the center of it, a contrast too sharp against sequins and velvet. She held a glass of sparkling water, the coldness of it grounding her. She reminded herself why she was here. This wasn't a celebration. It was an evaluation, and she wasn't the one being evaluated. Behind her calm eyes lay the truth only she knew. Tucked inside her purse was the device holding the passkey to the $1.9 billion Thorne Holdings was seeking. Without it, the company would crumble. Without her, every congratulatory drink in this room meant nothing. She inhaled slowly. I am not a guest. I am the verdict. Across the room, she saw Silas. Her ex-husband stood near the cocktail bar, surrounded by acquaintances who spoke loudly to disguise their insecurities. He looked up for a second and froze. His eyes widened, then dropped. He turned away so quickly it almost looked rehearsed. He pretended to laugh at a joke no one told, placing a hand on another man's shoulder as if absorbed in conversation. Anya watched him without anger. A year ago, that look might have wounded her. Tonight, it was merely confirmation. Silas Thorne had always been skilled at disappearing when he was needed most. It wasn't a learned behavior. It was inherited. Someone brushed past her, whispering to their friend, not quietly enough. Why would she show up dressed like that? Maybe she thought it was a charity event. Another chuckled. She looks like she wandered in from the wrong floor. Anya steadied her breath. She had endured worse. She had survived worse. And tonight she was here for one reason only. She needed to see Elias Thorne's real face before she decided his fate. Her eyes moved through the crowd until she found him. Elias stood near the central table, surrounded by wealthy men whose smiles never reached their eyes. The patriarch of the Thorne family looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, stern, wrapped in a superiority so thick it was practically a scent. 65 years old, the head of Thorne Holdings, and the man who once told her she should be grateful Silas married below his station. She watched him with a strategist's instinct. His posture, his tone, the way others reacted to him. He judged everyone around him as if they were lesser pieces on a board, only he deserved to play. But there was something else tonight, a tightness around his jaw, a restlessness in his movements, desperation. The company was running out of time. The world didn't know it yet, but Elias did. And he still believed the miracle he needed was on the way. He still believed the miracle, had no idea what he planned to do with it. A server carrying a tray paused near her. Would you like champagne, ma'am? No, thank you, she replied. He nodded politely and moved on. Her eyes shifted again to Silas, who had retreated further into the crowd. He glanced at her over someone's shoulder, only briefly, then looked away again. She remembered with uncomfortable clarity the last time she asked him to stand up for her. His mother had insulted her heritage during lunch. Silas stirred his coffee and said nothing. Now, as he looked no different than a man hiding behind his father's shadow, she felt a quiet acceptance settle inside her. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Anya? It was Marissa, an old colleague from the think tank where Anya had once worked before joining the Sterling Vanguard Fund. Marissa was bright, frank, and one of the few people who had never treated her differently. I didn't expect to see you here, she said. I had something to confirm, Anya replied. With Elias? Anya nodded. Marissa lowered her voice. Be careful. People say he's been losing control lately. Before Anya could answer, a sudden shift rolled through the crowd. She felt it first, then saw it. The whispers grew sharper. Faces turned. Elias had noticed her. He stared from across the hall, anger blooming across his features like a storm front. He whispered something to the men beside him, and their smirks sharpened. He began walking toward her, the distance shrinking with each step. Anya let out a soft breath. Finally, she tightened her grip on her glass, lifted her chin, and prepared herself. Whatever truth Elias revealed in the next moments would decide the future of his entire empire, and she was ready to witness every second of it. Elias Thorne reached her before anyone could pretend not to notice. His steps were sharp, slicing through the murmur of the room as if he owned the air itself. Anya kept her posture steady. She had seen that walk before. Every member of the Thorne family carried it like a signature, the rhythm of someone who believed the world was created to kneel for them. He stopped only a few inches away. The smell of expensive wine clung to him, mixed with cologne that tried too hard to hide the bitterness underneath. What are you doing here? He demanded. He didn't bother with a greeting. Silas left you, or do you need me to remind you? You have no place in this room. Anya met his stare. I was invited. Elias laughed, the sound dry and sharp. A few men behind him leaned in, smirking as if they were waiting for a show. Elias lifted his chin, eyes scanning her dress, her hair, every inch of her like a flaw. Invited, he said. Please. They probably confused you with the staff. Look at you. You walk in here with that face and that tone, and you expect anyone to believe you belong among us? Women like you drag down value whether you speak or not. Her heart tugged once, but only once. She had learned long ago not to let him take more. I'm exactly where I should be, she replied. The men beside him chuckled. One of them, a tall, silver-haired board advisor named Victor Hale, stepped closer. He had met her years ago at a shareholder briefing and made a point of pretending not to remember her name since then. Elias, Victor said. Let it go. She looks harmless enough. Elias waved him off. Harmless is the problem. Harmless people think they can walk into any room and take what they want. Anya didn't look away. She refused to give him even a second of triumph. You seem threatened, she said. A man like me does not get threatened. Elias turned to the group as if inviting them to witness his authority. A man like me teaches lessons. He lifted his glass. A full pour of deep red wine shimmered in the light. For a moment, she thought he was going to take a sip. Instead, he stepped closer, invading the last inch of space she kept for herself. Here is your first lesson, he said. His arm jerked forward. The wine shot across her chest and stomach, warm and sticky as it soaked into the gray fabric. Gasps scattered through the room, followed by laughter that people tried and failed to hide. The liquid traced down her dress like a wound. Anya stayed still. She felt the tremble in her hands before she forced it into stillness. Elias didn't bother looking at the damage he caused. He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his fingers delicately, as if touching her had soiled him. Consider that a warning, he said. You don't belong beside anyone of importance. Keep your distance and go home. Or at least clean yourself up so people don't confuse you with... He paused, letting the insult hang. Well, you know. Silas appeared behind Elias before she could speak. His voice was low, frantic. Anya, why didn't you stay away after I told you? Look what you've done. Father is furious. She blinked at him. What have I done? You provoked him, Silas whispered. This is not the time. People are watching. Please just go home and change before you embarrass him more. Embarrass him. That was the part that landed. Not a word about the stain on her dress. Not a question about whether she was hurt. Not even the decency to stand in front of her instead of behind his father. Elias scoffed. Silas, stop wasting breath on her. She was always soft. She thought she could marry into this family and rise with us. Instead, she pulled you down. Typical. Anya felt her breast settle. Something inside her clicked into place, quiet and controlled. She stepped forward, forcing Elias to meet her eyes fully. You shouldn't have done that, she said. He rolled his eyes. Or what? You'll complain? Cry? No, she said. I don't cry for men like you. The room fell oddly silent. Something about her tone cut through the amusement. Even Victor Hale shifted uncomfortably. Elias smirked again, but there was a flicker of confusion beneath it. Enjoy the evening if you insist on staying, but stay away from the important tables. Don't make us look cheap. He turned away, expecting the moment to be over. Anya didn't move. She watched him walk, memorizing the arrogance in every step, the certainty that nothing he did carried consequences. In that instant, she understood precisely what had to happen next. The humiliation wasn't the trigger, it was the confirmation. He had revealed exactly who he was when he believed no one of value was watching. She placed her hand on the edge of a marble column, steadying herself. Slowly, deliberately, she reached into her purse and touched the phone that held the code. Her voice was barely a whisper, meant only for herself. You just ended your own future, Elias. She walked away from the crowd. The wine cooled on her skin, but her resolve burned hotter with every step. Anya moved quickly, but not hurriedly. She slipped between clusters of guests, heading toward one of the marble columns that framed the hall. The shadows there muted the noise, giving her just enough privacy to breathe again. She exhaled slowly. The wine on her dress felt cold now, a reminder of what she had tolerated for too long. Her hand closed around her phone. The device felt heavier than usual, as if it could sense what she was about to do. She unlocked it with a practiced motion. The secure app opened immediately. A blank field glowed at the center of the screen, waiting for her confirmation. She hesitated only long enough to steady her mind. This was not revenge. This was accountability. Her thumb hovered over the red command window. Footsteps approached behind her, frantic and uneven. Silas. Anya, he called quietly, trying not to draw attention. His hair was slightly disheveled, his tie loosened from nerves. He looked like a man preparing for a scolding he already knew he deserved. She didn't turn. What do you want? We need to talk, he said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Why did you provoke him? Why didn't you leave when you saw how upset he was? Anya kept her eyes on the phone. He wasn't upset. He was comfortable. Silas ran a hand through his hair, trembling slightly. This is not the time to argue about my father's behavior. You have no idea what kind of pressure he's under. Oh, I do, she said. That is why he acted without restraint. He blinked, startled by her certainty. Look, I'm asking you nicely, please. Go home. Take care of yourself. Change your dress. We'll fix this tomorrow. We? She finally turned to him, her expression unreadable. Since when has anything been we between us? Silas flinched but pushed forward. I'm trying to help you avoid making things worse for yourself. If you stay here looking like that, people will judge you. They already judged me, she replied. Your father made sure of it. Anya, please, he whispered. Just walk out. If you disappear for the rest of the night, maybe he'll calm down. Maybe he'll forget. Forget? The word carried more weight than a shout. Silas, your father humiliated me in front of a room of investors, and you worry about whether he will forget? He swallowed hard but had nothing to say. A soft buzzing sound came from her phone, reminding her of the open command. Her fingers moved back toward the screen. Silas noticed. What are you doing? Something I should have done a long time ago. Anya, stop. If this is about the wine, if this is about him embarrassing you, then this is not about a stain, she said. It is about a pattern. Your father didn't lose control tonight. He showed who he has always been. Silas stepped closer, lowering his voice to a desperate whisper. I need this deal. My father needs it. If you cause trouble now, you'll destroy us. Her gaze hardened. Celeste, I walked out on you when you chose silence over respect. Tonight you did it again. And now you want me to save you? He reached out as if to touch her arm, but she stepped back. The distance between them became a wall. Anya, don't do this, he pleaded. Please, I know things were bad, but you don't have to. Silas, she said, cutting him off. I left our marriage because you never fought for me, and you still haven't. Before he could respond, she looked back at her phone. Her thumb pressed the screen. A small tone sounded. A single word appeared. Activated. The message was sent automatically to the regulatory board of the Sterling Vanguard Fund. The code she entered would trigger an immediate review of Thorn Holdings, including their human resources records, allegations of corruption, and supplier complaints. It was the financial equivalent of pulling the plug on a life support machine. She slipped the phone back into her purse. Silas stared at her as if she had just shattered the floor beneath him. What did you do? I acted, she said. Something neither you nor your father has done in a long time. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Shock stole his breath. Her voice softened, but not with affection, with finality. Silas, you asked me to leave. Fine. I'll leave soon, but the consequences stay. She walked past him, her steps steady. Behind her, Silas whispered, You ruined everything. No, she answered without looking back. I ended what needed to end. As she moved toward the edge of the hall, she didn't hear the conversation of guests anymore. She heard only the quiet certainty that what she had done was irreversible. Her dignity was intact. The chain reaction had begun, and none of them were ready. Anya remained near the edge of the hall, far enough from the crowd that their voices blurred into a distant hum. She could see the room clearly from where she stood. People lifted their glasses, laughed, and carried on as if nothing had shifted. They had no idea the ground beneath them had just cracked. Then the first vibration rippled through the hall. It came from a banker near the dessert table. His phone buzzed and he frowned as he pulled it out. His expression tightened immediately, his jaw locking into place. Before Anya could observe him further, another vibration echoed from the opposite side of the room. Then another, and another. A wave of alert tones moved through the guests like falling dominoes. Short, sharp sounds, muted gasps, faces draining of color one by one. Anya watched it unfold. A controlled, silent collapse, exactly the kind she expected. A man named Daniel Rose, the senior representative from Cambridge Capital, checked his phone and swore under his breath. He had been in every meeting with Thorne Holdings during the last quarter. Impatient, blunt, and known for having no tolerance for unethical leadership. The moment his phone chimed, Anya knew the message had reached its intended recipients. Daniel glanced around the room until his eyes landed on Elias. His stare darkened. Across the hall, Elias lifted his glass in a toast he hadn't yet delivered. He appeared mid-sentence when his assistant rushed toward him, nearly tripping on her heels. Julia Price, a woman who had worked under him for years, usually moved with poise. Tonight her hands shook as she held out his phone. Sir, Julia whispered, you need to hear this. Elias frowned at her tone, irritated by the interruption. What is it now, Julia? Please answer, she murmured. He snatched the phone and pressed it to his ear. The crowd closest to him quieted slightly, sensing something was wrong. His face began to shift even before the voice on the other end finished speaking. That alone told Anya exactly who he was talking to, the chief financial officer. Elias's expression drained of its arrogance. Say that again. The CFO's voice carried through the speaker loud enough that those standing near Elias could hear fragments. Words like withdrawal, breach, and emergency protocol. Elias straightened, panic twisting through his voice. Who triggered the review? Why is the guarantee suspended? You cannot be serious. He paced in a tight circle, running a hand down his face. Check again. There must be an error. This fund doesn't activate red-level audits without proof. Julia exchanged a nervous glance with Daniel Rose, who had now moved closer. Daniel cleared his throat. Elias, if this concerns the Sterling Vanguard Fund, then I'm afraid it is not a mistake. Elias turned to him, nearly shouting, You knew about this? Daniel shook his head. I knew a review was possible if your internal issues weren't resolved, but the red level is different. That only happens when they receive corroborated evidence. Elias scoffed, defensive and trembling. Corroborated by whom? My competitors? People jealous of our growth? Julia stepped closer. Sir, the email says they're requesting access to employee files, leadership communications, and investor complaints. They want everything by midnight. Someone nearby whispered, this could ruin them. Another murmured, I heard they had issues already. Rumors spread like wildfire. Anya saw them move through the room as if someone had opened a window during a storm. Silas appeared among the chaos, pale and overwhelmed. He reached his father's side. What's happening? Elias ignored him, speaking into the phone again. Find out who filed the complaint. I want names. I want the evidence. Everything stops until I know who started this. Daniel replied before the CFO could. You know the fund. They shield sources until the investigation ends. Elias snapped. Then they had better end it quickly. Daniel did not flinch. They will not. Not if it is red level. Only severe ethical violations trigger that code. Silas touched Elias's arm, trying to soothe him. We can fix this. Elias jerked away. No, we cannot fix anything until I know who is behind this. He stopped pacing and glared across the hall, scanning for enemies he imagined were hiding among the crowd. His eyes passed right over Anya, dismissing her without a second thought. He never considered that she could be connected to the crisis unfolding. Anya held her breath for a moment, watching the realization slowly creep into the room. Panic took shape. Whispers grew sharper, louder. Julia approached Elias again. Sir, the board members are receiving notifications too. They want to speak with you at once. He stared at her, stunned. The board, already? Yes, they're moving quickly. Anya felt a faint vibration in her own purse. Not a warning, a confirmation. The tremor had begun. She stepped back further into the shadows as the hall swelled with confusion. People moved in clusters toward exits, toward each other, toward anything that could explain what had happened. But the explanation stood quietly in the corner, calm and steady, wine still clinging to her dress like a fading bruise. The first collapse had begun exactly 5 minutes after she pressed the command. Right on schedule. The noise in the hall shifted from confused murmurs to sharp, uneasy whispers. Guests edged away from Elias as if misfortune itself had settled on his shoulders. He stood frozen for a moment, gripping his phone so tightly his knuckles turned white. Julia lingered nearby, looking as though she might faint. Silas hovered behind them, lost and helpless. Then the board appeared. 3 members of the Thorn Holdings board pushed through the crowd with the urgency of people who had been summoned to a fire. They were known faces, long-standing authorities within the company. Margaret Levinson, the senior legal advisor, Charles Dorian, head of compliance, and Pierce Langford, the most influential independent director. All 3 were older, seasoned, and notoriously difficult to impress. Tonight, none of them looked impressed. Margaret was the first to speak, her expression thunderous. Elias, we need to speak with you. Now. Elias straightened, trying to regain authority. This is not the place. Whatever concerns you have can wait. Charles stepped forward, his voice icy. It cannot wait. Not when the fund has issued a red-level audit. Pierce held up a tablet. The screen glowed with a newly opened document. And not when we have received this. Elias blinked. What is that supposed to be? Pierce turned the screen toward him. Something our internal sweep recovered. Something your name is attached to. The color drained from Elias's face. He leaned in reluctantly. Anya stayed where she was but watched every detail. She didn't need to read the words. She already knew what was in that email. Margaret's voice sliced through the tension. Explain this, Elias. Elias scanned the message. His eyes widened, then narrowed. This is years old. And still written by you, Charles said. Explicit slurs, discriminatory language toward a partner. And the timing aligns with the dispute they raised. It was taken out of context, Elias snapped. I was angry. People say things in private. You cannot treat this as... It is not just this email, Pierce interrupted. We received a notice 10 minutes ago. The fund has evidence of misconduct occurring at this event. Something fresh, something recent enough to trigger the highest level of review. Elias looked between them, confused. What misconduct? I have done nothing. Margaret's gaze sharpened. Have you? The question hung in the air. Silas stepped forward, voice strained. Please, can we discuss this privately? This is a misunderstanding. Pierce did not even look at him. Your father's past comments are one thing, but triggering a crisis tonight at a fundraising event is another. Elias exhaled shakily, trying to keep the panic from showing. This entire situation is being blown out of proportion. Someone wants to sabotage us. Margaret pointed at the tablet. Then tell us who, and tell us why the fund would receive proof of misconduct from this very evening. Elias opened his mouth, but a new voice joined the circle. Anya. She stepped forward from the shadows, not rushing, not hesitant, just present. Her dress still bore the drying stain of wine across the front. Heads turned, whispers rose. She spoke clearly, her voice cutting the air. You are all looking for evidence. It is standing right in front of you. Elias turned sharply toward her. You again? Pierce looked between them. Ms. Sterling, is this regarding the misconduct report? It is, she said. Silas tensed. Anya, stop. You don't know what you're doing. She ignored him. She focused solely on the board. If you want to know why the fund rescinded its guarantee, look at this dress. Look at what happened earlier. Charles frowned. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything, she answered. I am stating it plainly. Your chairman decided to demonstrate his authority by humiliating me in front of his guests. Unprovoked. Gasps echoed through the nearest circle of guests. Elias stepped closer, furious. I taught you respect, nothing more. Anya looked him in the eye. You showed me exactly who you are, and exactly why leadership ethics reviews exist. Margaret's brows furrowed. He assaulted you? You saw the aftermath, Anya said. Indeed, many people here witnessed it. Some laughed, but the fund does not laugh when confronted with proof of abusive conduct. Silas grabbed Anya's arm, whispering harshly, Anya, please, don't do this. She pulled her arm free. I am not doing anything. Your father already did it. Pierce looked back at the tablet. If this is true, it adds to the pattern. Elias's voice broke into desperation. She is exaggerating. She is bitter because my son left her. The board members exchanged looks. None of them matched Elias's confidence. Anya spoke one last time. The stain you see on my dress is worth $1.9 billion. That is what it costs your company. Silence swallowed the hall. The board turned toward Elias. Their faces had shifted completely now. Resolution settling in. For the first time that night, Elias Thorne looked small. The tension in the hall thickened into something that felt almost physical. The board members exchanged grave looks. Elias's breath came fast and shallow, and Silas hovered behind him like a ghost, unsure where to stand. Then the microphone screeched lightly. Every head in the room turned. The host of the evening, Lionel Carver, stepped onto the small stage at the front of the hall. Lionel was a well-known philanthropist, usually soft-spoken and effortlessly composed. But tonight his hands trembled slightly as he gripped the microphone. His gaze swept the audience, then stopped on a single person. Anya. Ladies and gentlemen, Lionel began, voice strained. Could I have your attention for an urgent announcement? The noise died instantly. Elias frowned. What is he doing? He has no authority to interrupt the program. But Lionel raised his hand again. This concerns the future of tonight's project, the funding initiative, and several ongoing partnerships. I ask that all guests remain calm. Silas whispered, this can't be good. Lionel's next words confirmed it. Please join me in welcoming the principal investor of the Sterling Vanguard Decision Committee. She has requested to address the room directly. He took a breath. Mrs. Anya Sterling. It felt like the floor dropped several inches. Elias turned toward Lionel as if he had misheard. What did you just say? But Lionel continued. Mrs. Sterling is the lead authority on the approval of the $1.9 billion fund allocation. Any withdrawal or confirmation from her directly affects all contracts associated with tonight's event. A stunned silence wrapped the hall. Everyone stared at Anya, not with mockery this time, not with doubt, with fear, with realization, with the sudden awareness that they had misjudged the most important person in the room. Anya stepping forward. She didn't rush. She didn't square her shoulders for effect. She simply walked, with the calm certainty of someone who had stopped trying to prove anything to anyone. The stain on her dress remained visible, but now it looked less like a humiliation and more like a badge of truth. Lionel handed her the microphone with a small bow. Thank you for being here, he said quietly. Thank you, she replied. Her voice carried through the speakers, steady and collected. I had not planned to speak tonight. I had hoped to observe quietly and make my decision after the event. But circumstances require clarity. Elias took a step forward. This is outrageous. She has no... Anya looked at him. Only looked. He froze instantly, cut off mid-sentence as the board members shifted toward her in silent support. She continued, addressing the room. Many of you know me as the former wife of Silas Thorne. Some of you may know me as a strategist for Sterling Vanguard. But most of you chose not to know me at all. A few guests lowered their eyes. I came tonight with a decision to make, she said. A decision that would determine whether Thorne Holdings received the financial support they requested. I wanted to see with my own eyes whether past issues had been resolved. She gestured to her dress, calm and unshaken. My answer was given to me very clearly. A ripple traveled through the hall. Elias shouted, "You are overreacting. This entire situation is a setup. She is emotionally unstable and vindictive." Lionel tried to quiet him, but Anya raised a hand. "It is unnecessary. Let him speak." Elias sneered. "You think one spill, one emotional moment, gives you the right to destroy my company?" Anya lowered the microphone for a breath, then lifted it again. "No, your behavior gives me that right." She faced the audience once more. "Leadership ethics matter. Respect matters. And accountability always arrives, whether invited or not." Her tone remained mild. That made every word sharper. "My role here is not personal, it is professional. The fund requires evidence of integrity. It requires ethical conduct at all levels of leadership." She paused. And tonight, Mr. Elias Thorne demonstrated the opposite. Gasps followed. Now the room was fully on her side. "I therefore decline the investment," she said, "effective immediately." Elias staggered backward. "You cannot do that. You cannot make that decision alone." Pierce Langford's voice cut through the air. "She can. And she just did." Anya nodded. "Furthermore, the evidence gathered tonight will be sent to regulatory authorities first thing in the morning. A leadership review will follow." Silas stepped forward, face pale. "Anya, please wait. You don't understand what this will do to us." She looked at him with measured calm. "I do understand." "Then why?" he whispered. "Because your father gave the fund its answer." Her voice softened but never wavered. "He ended the chance you were given." Silas opened his mouth again, but she turned away, returning the microphone to Lionel. The hall erupted into whispers, shock, and frantic calls for damage control. Anya stepped off the stage. This time, no one dared stand in her way. The moment Anya stepped off the stage, the hall erupted into chaos. What had been murmurs before turned into frantic shouts, rushed phone calls, and sharp exchanges between partners who suddenly realized the floor beneath Thorne Holdings had vanished. Screens lit up across the room as notifications flooded in. After-hours trading plummeted, emergency suspensions were declared, and panicked inquiries from investors demanded answers. A few guests backed toward the exits, whispering urgently. Others pressed their phones to their ears, trying to reach brokers or board assistants. The panic spread like fire across Silk. Margaret Levinson, the board's senior legal advisor, was already speaking rapidly into her phone. Her voice clipped and hurried. "Yes, initiate protective protocol. No, he was not misquoted. I saw the situation myself." Pierce Langford barked orders to someone unseen. "Freeze all discretionary accounts until we confirm the audit results." Charles Dorian, usually mild, had transformed into a storm, pacing with short, furious strides. "I warned him," he muttered. "I warned him this would happen." Through it all, Elias Thorne stood motionless in the center of the hall. His face looked carved from stone, drained of color and certainty. A man who had built an empire only to watch it collapse in front of the very people he once dominated. How could this happen?" he whispered, barely audible. But no one answered. No one needed to. The truth was written across Anya's dress. She walked toward the exit, ignoring the chaos behind her. For the first time that night, her breath felt light. Her chest felt open. The weight she had carried for years had fallen off her shoulders like a broken chain. She reached the tall glass doors when she heard footsteps running behind her. "Anya!" Silas's voice cracked on her name. She paused but did not turn. "Anya, please, wait." He stumbled as he reached the door, breathless, suit wrinkled, tie nearly undone. He didn't look like the polished heir he had always tried to be. He looked like a man whose world had just shattered. She turned slowly. Silas swallowed hard, meeting her eyes with an expression that mixed guilt, fear, and something too late to matter. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know tonight would turn out like this." "You didn't know because you didn't want to know," she replied. He shook his head desperately. "I was trying to protect you." "You were trying to protect him," Anya said softly. "You always protect him." Silas reached for her hand, but she stepped back. He froze. "Please," he said, voice shaking. "Give me a chance to explain. You don't understand how hard it has been. The pressure he puts on me, the things he expects. I never wanted him to treat you that way. Yet you let him," she said. Silas winced. "I was terrified of losing everything." "And now you have," Anya replied. He looked at her dress, the dried stain marking the fabric. His eyes filled with regret. He shouldn't have done that. I should have stepped in. I should have defended you. Not should have, she corrected. You simply didn't. Silas took a shaky breath. Can we talk? Please, even just for a moment. I don't want our story to end like this. Our story ended long ago, Anya said. Tonight only reminded you. He blinked rapidly, fighting whatever he wanted to say next. I still care about you. I always have. She shook her head gently. If caring doesn't lead to action, it's just a feeling. And feelings don't protect anyone. The doors behind her opened slightly as a breeze drifted in. She could feel the night air calling her forward. Silas's voice dropped to a broken whisper. Are you really walking away? Yes, she said. Not from you, from the life I tried to build with people who never valued me. Silas closed his eyes as if her words were a blow. I don't want to lose you. You already did, she replied. He looked at her one last time, eyes filled with a grief he had earned himself. If I had fought for you even once, would things have been different? Anya exhaled, not unkindly. Yes, they would have. Silas's shoulders fell. But you didn't, she finished. She stepped back toward the door. Outside, a luxury car pulled up smoothly, the driver stepping out to open the rear door without needing a signal. As Anya walked toward the car, Silas whispered behind her, Please don't leave me alone with this. She didn't turn around. I'm not leaving you alone, Silas. I'm letting you face what you avoided. She entered the car, the door closed with a quiet click. Through the window, she saw the hall behind her descending deeper into chaos. Board members shouting orders, partners arguing, guests are rushing out. And Elias Thorne, standing among the wreckage, finally understood the price of the moment he let his cruelty rule him. The car pulled away. Anya leaned back against the seat, lifting her hand to touch the stain on her dress. It no longer felt like a wound, it felt like closure. It felt like freedom. The city lights streaked past the window as she left everything behind, the Thorne empire collapsing in the reflection that shimmered across the glass. Thank you for listening to Anya's journey of dignity, courage, and powerful self-worth. What part of her story spoke to you the most? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. Your support means everything. Stay tuned for the next story, and until then, take care and keep your light strong.